Good morning. It's back to work for Congress with a busy agenda. Just a couple of weeks to get it all done before lawmakers take another recess for the fall campaign and in many cases their own re-election. Getting a spending package in place before October 1st is the #1 priority for the House and the Senate. We'll be covering it all here on the C-SPAN networks. It is Sunday morning, September the 4th, 65 days until Election Day. Early voting getting underway in a number of states within the next couple of weeks. And yesterday, as part of his outreach to the African American community, Republican Donald Trump in Detroit. It followed a meeting that took place last Tuesday between members of Congress, including the chair and the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, as well as other lawmakers, trying to look for ways to improve relations between communities and their police force, in particular, the minority communities. 202 is the area code, 748-8000. That's our line for Democrats, and 202-748-8001 for Republicans. And if you're an independent, 202-748-8002. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/cspan or send us a tweet at CSPAN-WJ. And good Sunday morning to you. Thank you very much for being with us here on C-SPAN's Washington Journal. We're already getting some of the tweets on the issue of improving relations between communities, especially inner city communities and police departments, especially in light of what happened in Ferguson, Missouri, and Dallas and other cities around the country. There's this from Bill, who says, "Stop cops acting like they are better than the average citizen and don't have to follow the same rules as those citizens." So the conversation already underway. You can also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/cspan. We'll get to your calls and show you highlights as well of Donald Trump, who was in Detroit yesterday. We covered that event live here on C-SPAN. And on Tuesday, one of the members of the House Judiciary Committee, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, Democrat from Texas, had this to say.
This was one of the most powerful discussions on police-community relations that I've had the privilege of being in, and would hope that without our police working group being in every city and hamlet in America, that we would engage in these kinds of discussions. Because in time of tragedy, in times of danger, when you dial that 911, you are looking for law enforcement to come. And you're looking for them holding up your hand to be rescued. And so it is important to note that we need law enforcement, and it is important to note to the law enforcement members out there, to the families out there, the community wants policing, and they want a safe and secure neighborhood. We need to get away from this general statement that law enforcement is disliked in our communities. That is not true. But I think what is important is to note the fact that police-community relations are important and significant, and I join the voices that say that it is probably the most significant civil rights issue of our time.
That from Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, Democrat of Texas. This is a story from the Washington Times as federal lawmakers head to Detroit to improve community police relations. You can read the story online at WashingtonTimes.com. Let's go to Linda joining us from Lexington, Kentucky, Democrats line. How would you improve relations, Linda?
Well, I would insist that they acknowledge there is a problem. I'm an old 70-year-old white woman. I can see from my own eyes that policemen kill too fast, especially when it comes to black men. And I think a lot of their problem is that they are afraid they do carry guns because we're so crazy about carrying guns anymore. Take, for instance, the young black quarterback. He was not allowed to do his rights, his First Amendment rights. But the Second Amendment right, gun carrying, like Obama said, your Bible and your guns, that's all they think about. They've got to realize the problem. Policemen are afraid these black men may have guns. They shoot too fast. And police unions are responsible because they cover for the bad cops, and they get the good cops, like in New Orleans, killed because they do cover up the bad cops. You don't have to be black to see that. An honest white person would see it. I don't know what's wrong with Republicans' eyes. Thank you.
Linda from Lexington, Kentucky. Thank you very much for the call. Glenn is joining us from Lakeland, Florida, also on the Democrats line. Good morning, Glenn. How would you improve relations?
To me, in order to improve relations, police have to actually get involved within the communities that they police. The one thing that the police doesn't do is that they don't get to know the community, because the majority of policemen don't live near or in those communities. They actually live in probably other parts of town, and then they work there, and then they have this inherent attitude that, well, okay, it's us against them.
So do you think, though, that if you work in a community, whether it's a town or a city, you should be required to live there? If you're a police
officer? No, I'm not
officer?
saying you're required to live there. That's what I'm saying is that's part of the problem, because a lot of times if you're going to recruit people to be policemen, maybe you want to say, well, fine, okay, I need to get people that are familiar with the neighborhood. You know, it doesn't matter whether they're white or black, but it's just the fact that it makes it a lot easier if you know the people in the community, because instead of targeting the people that may cause a problem, you're looking at everybody as being a potential problem. Whereas if a person over here lives in this home, and this person, has a good job and they work and their kids are going to school and they're good people, then you don't mix them in with the other people. And to me, as long as you don't get involved in the community, you don't make that distinction. You still say, well, okay, this person is actually somebody that's going to be somebody to be concerned about when they shouldn't be.
Glenn, thanks very much for the call. And this is a tweet from another viewer saying, retrain the police not to act like an occupying force, implement community policing, create jobs in the community. This program is carried live on C-SPAN Radio. By the way, we have a new C-SPAN Radio app. You can check it out, get it through your iPhone store or Apple or iTunes, or if you have an Android device as well, and all the information on our website at cspan.org. The question we're asking is ways you think communities can improve relations between the community and the police departments. The numbers to dial in, 202-748-8000. That's our line for Democrats, and 202-748-8001 for Republicans. Send us a tweet at C-SPAN WJ or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/cspan. Congressman Dave Reichert also attending this meeting that took place last Tuesday. We covered the full event. It's on our website at cspan.org. Here's what the Washington lawmaker had to say.
I'm one of two career law enforcement officers in Congress. 435 people, there's just two of us. So cops around the country and sheriffs and police chiefs come and see us, and the two of us. and also community groups, though, too, because they absolutely see the connection, as we've seen here in Baltimore. So the question is, why is there so much violence across our country? And I think that my colleague here touched on it, and there's so many opportunities to touch not only kids and education and homelessness and others, but the real question is, if we think this is a priority, if we believe this is a priority, and it is, then we need to find a way to make changes. And the way that you make changes starts from the bottom, but you have to have the support from the top. And one of the reasons this group is together is you have members of the United States House of Representatives traveling around the country saying, we believe this is a serious issue and it needs to be resolved and solved today.
Republican Congressman Dave Reichert, who joined his fellow lawmakers in Detroit last Tuesday to look for ways to improve relations in that city and in cities around the country. And that's our focus on this Sunday morning. A number of you sending in tweets. Here are some of them. This is from Donna, who says sensitivity training for cops will not be enough. Senator Sanders is right when he says police should reflect the communities they work in. And this from Karen saying improve relations, ? Maybe the police should get out of their cars and walk the neighborhoods, get to know the community. And finally, this from another viewer saying for police to realize that they are not judge, jury, and executioner. On our Facebook page, again, join us on facebook.com/cspan, and a number of comments, including this from Steve, who says the following: focus more on the reintegration from people released from jails into their communities with jobs, education, and training instead of disenfranchising them. And Paul says every county across America should have an elected citizens review board with the power to hire, fire, investigate, and recommend legal charges against cops, judges, lawyers, CPS agents, domestic violence program workers, and their public employees. No cops, judges, bar members, or government employees are allowed to serve on this board. We have had enough wolves guarding the hen house. Let's go to Ruth joining us from Sandy Hook, Connecticut. Good morning, Ruth.
Good morning.
Democrats
I
line.
think I am feeling so discouraged that I'll make my comments very brief.
Okay.
I'm just reading an article in the New York Times by the editorial board about unions and the power they have with police not being charged or not having to come forward and give testimony right away. And then we have this presidential candidate using such horrendous language about other and language that we never ever heard in our presidential campaigns before. So there are so many layers, and I think lots of your commentators have talked about it. They know what to do. You have to get Republicans in Congress who are there with gerrymandered districts to want to do something about it, and they don't. So I guess I will end there, and I'm sorry to be so discouraged.
Well,
Thank you.
Ruth, you're calling from Sandy Hook, Connecticut, and of course one of the scenes of the more horrific crimes involving guns and young people, not necessarily in this case involving police officers, but certainly the violence that is seen in our society.
Granddaughter was a third grader at Sandy Hook Elementary and is still suffering the consequences of that horrific day and probably will for the rest of her life.
How so, Ruth?
Well, she sees a counselor, noise, but, she hears a loud noise. My grandson walks in the house and she doesn't, see his face and she jumps, that kind of thing. She doesn't want July 4th fireworks or, just all kinds of things that bother her. In fact, in her school, she's now in 7th grade, there are a few kids that still need to see the therapy dogs because they have been so affected, and so many of the teachers didn't go back to the new, gorgeous, fabulous, Sandy Hook school because it was just too traumatic, and
Sure.
and their, kind of consequences was really never dealt with because it was horrendous. I can only tell you that my granddaughter and her classmates in her third grade class crawled back and forth between this other third grade class as they heard noises and didn't know what it was, and the doors were locked from the wrong side. And just I don't think I will ever forget myself going to the fire station to pick her up because my daughter's a teacher in a different community, and so I went after I heard that we could go and pick up kids together. And never, as long as I live, will I forget. And it's the sadness is there was this Adam Lanza, who really had been diagnosed with mental illness from very early on, and his mother that rejected all of the counseling.
Right.
So just a tragedy, and all over the country. And and the blame is we need to do so much. Like when we hear about, black communities and black people shooting each other, let's go into those communities and see how they live and what their communities and their education and their food places to buy food, and are there any green in their communities to go for a walk. There's just so much in this country for the last 40 years that we've ignored. It isn't just the one thing. And
Ruth? Well, I just want to say thank you for adding your voice to the conversation. Good luck with your granddaughter as well, by the way, now in 7th grade.
Very much, and I enjoy your program. Thank you very, very much.
Ruth, we thank you from Sandy Hook, Connecticut. And this is from another viewer saying, when cops are guilty of murder, they always get away with it. Fixing this would go a long way in developing mutual respect. On our Facebook page, more comments. This is from Jay, who says, stop using the Justice Department as a business. It was never intended to be for profit. When we get back to protect and serve justice, it will gain favor back in the community. Connor says, end the war on drugs, improve police training and culture, hire more minority police, and don't implement laws that target the poor. Tracy says get police out of the cars and back on the beats like they used to be. They could get to know residents individually and on a first-name basis. The rest has come to the people in these communities. They have to be willing to form relationships with and trust police. And finally, from Martha, who says, my answer depends on which communities we are discussing. Some communities, usually black, our legislators create laws to suppress behavior, and the police run to enforce unjust laws and exercise in futility. Let's go on the Republican line. Joseph is joining us from Stafford, Virginia. Good morning.
Good morning. I've been listening to the show this morning. Look, I live in Stafford, Virginia. We don't ever see police getting out of their squad cars and getting to know, quote unquote, this term, the community, okay? We don't have any crime in Stafford. On 4th of July, you know how many people got shot? 0. South side of Chicago, where Barack Obama was a community organizer, 64 people shot. This isn't about police getting to know the community. This is about the citizens of the east side, south side of Chicago versus the citizens of Stafford, Virginia. The citizens there are largely criminals. You can see it in the newspapers every single day, the amount of people that are being shot. This isn't about the guns. This is about the citizens that live there, that every night and every morning they wake up and decide to commit a crime. We don't have any crime here to speak of in Stafford, but we also don't have police getting out of their squad cars and getting to know the community. That is a false choice. The problem needs to start with the people that live there. They wake up in the morning and they, A, decide to commit a crime, or B, decide not to commit a crime.
Joseph from Stafford, Virginia, thanks for the call. This viewer is saying, number 1, get rid of bad seeds throughout the ranks. Number 2, annual diversity training. And number 3, get to know the residents. Be the change. From Sky Captain, the police need to quit using lethal force when it's not called for. It is called proportional response. On our Facebook page, there's this from Jimmy. The police need to stop killing people, saying that is a start. And Don says hire from the community to increase the foot patrols and deputize the police, have observer-level cadets with no weapons, provide robust educational resources and social services for the operation. And Lewis says this is not a hard one. Police departments need to stop behaving like an occupying military force, treating citizens, especially those of a certain skin tone, like they are on a prison yard. Let's go to Stephen joining us from Utah, our line for independence. Welcome to the conversation.
Yes, there are eternal principles that have existed that will increase the relationship between the police and the community, and will also increase the social, spiritual, and economic value of individuals. Now, these principles were given to Israel, and they're called the 10 Commandments. If you look at that, it says, thou shalt not covet, kill, steal, rape. And if people would start doing that, you wouldn't need the police force. Now, if you look at Clinton and Hillary and Obama, none of them set an example of going to church to show people that this is where you can find these principles and start using them. And well, if people will apply those principles, you wouldn't even need a police force.
Stephen, thank you, from South Jordan, Utah. And Harriet says, what happened to Freddie Gray? The police involved were guilty and still on the force, ? Not race, it's police mentality. Joyce is joining us from Houston, Texas. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. I agree with the last caller that called. I live in the most dangerous city in Houston, Texas. It's called Sunnyside. Mm-hmm. We don't need to get the policemen correct. We need to get ourselves correct. And we keep saying that, they just pick on blacks, but we have more crime. And because we have more crime, we need more policemen. But the policeman is presented in such a negative way now, and we need them more than other communities where all this crime is not going on. And I talk to the young people, and especially young black men, and I encourage them to obey the policeman. When the policeman stops you,
Do what the policeman says to do at that time. And if you think the policeman is wrong, then take it higher. But don't stand on that street corner with that policeman with all that firepower wrapped around his waist, and you're standing there, have brought a toothpick to a gunfight. Respect the policeman. Put your hands on your steering wheel and keep them there until that policeman is standing over you, giving you further instruction. If you are fumbling, maybe you are fumbling for your ID. But how did that policeman know that that's what you are fumbling for? They do be fumbling for guns. They do shoot policemen dead. And we need our policemen, and especially in the black communities. Think about Chicago. Think about Detroit. Think about these places. And let me say this. And I'm not for any policeman doing wrong. I want that up front. But every case that have gone bad, you can trace it back that they did not obey that policeman. Do what that policeman says, whether you like it or not. I received a ticket last year. Do you think I was proud that that policeman stopped me? But guess what? I respected that policeman. I did what he told me to do. It was yes, sir, and no, sir. And I am almost 84 years old, and he was a young man. It was yes, sir, no, sir. Guess what? I respected him. He respected me, but he gave me that ticket. But guess what?
Unfortunately, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
I respected him, and I got the ticket. But guess what? The ticket was tossed out. But suppose I had gotten that and gotten smart with that policeman and ended up dead. Because let me repeat, every case that you can that went bad, they did not respect that policeman. If the policeman said, get out of the street, get out of the street. If the policeman said, get on the ground, get on the ground. If he said, put your hands above your head, put your hands above your head and do what he tells you to do. And I guarantee you it won't be all this what's going on with the policeman. The policeman is not the bad guys. We've got these people in our communities that are bad. They steal our stuff. And they break in our homes. I walked in my home with a burglar inside my home. So we need the policemen in our black community. And please, media, please stop. Every time something happens with a bad policeman, you spotlight it. What about the thousands of good things that policemen do every day? And it is never on the news, because here's the news. If it bleeds, it leads.
Joyce,
and
I'm just going to jump in. Thank you very much for your call. You are 84 years old?
Yeah, I'm some months away from 84 years old.
Happy birthday!
And I teach and I really teach the young men. And let me say this, and I'll be gone.
Okay.
I raised a son as a single mama through divorce. My son will tell you today he would have rather have dealt with the policeman than to deal with his mother, because his mother didn't take no foolishness off him. And I taught him how to respect the policeman, how to respect authority, how to respect the next door neighbor, how to respect the school teacher. My children couldn't go to do the stuff that these children are doing today. And we have got to get back to the old way of raising our children. Not beating. I did not abuse my children. But it's one thing they knew. They knew that I would reach and get them.
Joyce, thank you for the call. Good advice for all sons. Listen to your mother. Thank you for the call from Houston, Texas. Joyce on the Republican line. We appreciate it. Joyce, thank you. This is the story, front page of the Washington Post. Donald Trump looking for inroads in Detroit. He was there yesterday visiting a predominantly African-American church. The story by Jenna Johnson and Vanessa Williams saying Donald Trump made a brief visit Saturday morning to a black church in the heart of this majority black city, the latest step in his faltering and often awkward effort to soften the edges of a candidate hardened by racially tinged appeals that have resonated primarily with white Republicans. In what the pastor said was Trump's first visit to an African-American church. The GOP presidential nominee swayed with gospel music, held a baby, accepted a prayer shawl, and told the congregation that he was there to listen to their concerns. Here's part of what happened.
Our nation is too divided. We talk past each other, not to each other, and those who seek office do not do enough to step into the community and learn what is going on. They don't know. They have no clue. I'm here today to learn so that we can together remedy injustice in any form, and so that we can also remedy economics, so that the African American community can benefit economically through jobs and income and so many other different ways. Our political system has failed the people and works only to enrich itself. I want to reform that system so that it works for you, everybody in this room. I believe true reform can only come.
Michigan at a predominantly African-American church, and a couple of tweets on ways to improve community and police relations. This is from Michael, who says, "We've been having this discussion since at least the 1960s, probably before. Maybe the politicians and media are part of the problem." And he sent a follow-up tweet to Joyce, who phoned us just a moment ago. "Go get him, Mom." Joyce from Houston, Texas. William from Chicago, Independent Line. Good morning. And your city has seen more than its share of violence. Good morning.
Indeed. Good morning, sir. Couple of things. One, the individuals from Virginia and Utah, the person from Virginia, not all black people are criminals. You don't wake up in the morning and think about doing devious things. But the individual from Utah, there are more churches in the black community. There are storefront churches in most blocks in Chicago. So black people do have more values. Okay. Now, to discuss your topic, both sides need to be held accountable. The black community need to call out these individuals who are committing these crimes. As I said before, not all black people are committing crimes. There are few individuals are committing crimes, making it bad for everyone else. And that's for the police. There needs to be accountability. If a police officer have done something that is not according to their, how may I put it, to their job description, they should be charged. They should be fired, and they should go to prison. Look, I have been brutalized by the police as a teenager. I faced police brutality. Mind my own business at a public library. Do I think all policemen are bad? No, of course not. I've been stopped by the police, but there was a mutual respect when I was stopped by the police. So to wrap this up, I think both sides should be held accountable. Thank you.
William, thank you very much for the call. Before she makes her appearance on ABC's This Week, Kellyanne Conway is going to be joining us in about 15 to 20 minutes. She'll be in New York. She is the campaign manager for Donald Trump. A chance for you to weigh in, and she'll take your calls and questions on the Trump campaign. By the way, ABC's This Week is one of the 5 Sunday morning programs that you can listen to on C-SPAN Radio, heard nationwide on Sirius XM beginning at noon Eastern with NBC's Meet the Press. Also CBS's Face the Nation, ABC's This Week, State of the Union on CNN, and Fox News Sunday, all on C-SPAN Radio every Sunday. As we said at the top of the program, it is a back-to-work week for Congress. This is a story from CQ Weekly, Crunch Time in the Capitol. And the story begins by David Lehrman writing that a politically polarized Congress convenes in Washington this week to manage the consequences of failure. The pending collapse of the appropriations process, despite the high hopes of Republican leaders to rescue it, mean that lawmakers will spend the next month scrambling to avoid a calamitous government shutdown for the new fiscal year, which begins on October the 1st. A solution won't come easy, writes CQ Roll Call, with an increasingly fractious Republican caucus remains divided over spending, and Democrats sense an opportunity to gain leverage. How and whether other lawmakers resolve their dilemma will also help determine how voters size up their representatives in this re-election effort. And we've already heard from Senate Democratic leaders, including Harry Reid and Senator Chuck Schumer, both of whom have said that they would not approve a CR, a continuing resolution that extends into next year. They want to see this resolved under the Obama administration, giving, if Hillary Clinton is elected, a clean slate on January 20th. Republicans also sensing their own opportunities in the budget debate, including on the Zika funding, and will be covering the House here on C-SPAN, the Senate on C-SPAN 2. Victoria in Huntington, West Virginia, Democrats line. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
We sure can. How would you improve relations between the police departments and communities?
Well, first of all, I think that we really need to have more discussions. I think there need to be maybe some quarterly meetings. I don't think people should wait until you have incident after incident after incident and Black Lives Matters, and then you want to do something when you killed hundreds of black people. Now, they probably killed more than that. It's just that people probably got sick and tired to the point where they started videoing. Now, that being said, even on the last holiday, 4th of July, a lot of firecrackers and things going off all up and down my avenue where I live. Somebody must eventually call the police. It got quiet. And I opened my door and I looked out. There was some officers out there. Now some discussions engaged. A backup officer came, and I'm thinking, what is going to happen now? Nothing happened. There must have been an intellectual conversation. They shook hands. The officers left. Now, I don't know why this much cordiality can't take place. Now, I want to throw something in there to the caller that made the comment about Obama and Hillary not incorporating the 10 Commandments. First of all, there's more than 10 commandments in the Bible. We have 613 commandments, okay? And every time you see the word you shall, that's a commandment in the Bible. Now, also, if they never took prayer out of school, if Bush and whomever was had sent up 1 million signatures to take prayer out of school, if that never had happened, maybe we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. And also, when it comes to Mr. Trump visiting that church yesterday, I'm not sold on it, and I don't believe he's sincere about going to this church and what all he's going to do. My sister lived in Detroit, Michigan. She just had to be moved to North Carolina with more of my relatives in Raleigh because they broke into her house, tore up everything, and nothing apparently was done. Now, that being said, I don't have no problems with the police. I worked for the police department years ago. Matter of fact, I was going 80 miles per hour in a trap years ago trying to get back to school to get my daughter. Now, of course, I saw the blue light go off. The man stopped me, and he said, "Ma'am, do you have any idea how fast you were going?" I said, "Yes, sir, probably 80 or 85. The officer starts laughing. And I said, "What is so funny, sir?" He said, I stopped at least 50 people in this same trap. You're the only person that told the truth. He didn't give me a ticket. He let me go. He encouraged me to, of course, follow the speed limit, be careful, and I hope you get your daughter. Now, this is the kind of thing that officer can learn from. And like the caller said before, you don't hear or see them showing anything positive about officers doing positive things. However, I'm not condoning what they did in terms of beating people and somebody breathing, saying, "I can't breathe," and you still choking them in a chokehold. I mean, something has to give. And I really believe some of these officers, we need to find out, do they even know what the Bible look like? If they want to love their enemy or love people as they love themselves, and vice versa for people out in the world, do you love the officers as you love yourselves? We need to learn to love each other and respect each other and quit so much hate. I've never seen so much hate. My same sister, like I said, that had to move to North Carolina, she was tear gas out of a place that used to be called White Pantry. It no longer exists. But these things have gone on for decades.
Victoria, I'll stop you there. Thank you very much for the call. We appreciate it. This is the focus this morning, and you can send us a tweet at C-SPAN WJ for those listening on C-SPAN Radio, ways that you think we can improve community and police relations. Also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/CSPAN. The other headline on this Sunday morning is the president continues his trip to Asia. He is in China, his final stop there, his final visit there before going to Laos, his final visit to Asia is what I meant to say, before leaving the White House. He'll also be in Laos early this week. This is the story from the New York Times. As the two largest economies, the U.S. and China, set aside differences and commit to a historic climate agreement that was worked out in Paris. Senate Republicans saying it's a treaty, the White House saying it's an agreement, something that doesn't need Senate approval. The story this morning, front page and inside the New York Times. Back to your calls on the issue of improving community and police relations. We'll go to Montgomery Village, Maryland, Independent Line, and we'll hear from Joseph.
Thank you for taking my call, Steve.
Sure.
Steve, the first speaker took my thunder, who said that you don't have to be white or black to see the problem. I think the question, how do we improve police-community relations, is a critical one. But before then, I will ask the question as to why the situation deteriorate this way? And my answer to that would be that we have a society where there is what I call artificial wall. Hopefully, will come out in my book soon. We have artificial walls that divide people. People on one side of the wall don't know about the people on the other side. However, what they learn about the other side they don't know about happen to be negative ones. And you could see it across the board. The guy who called from Virginia earlier, he said where he lives that there is no problem. There, in Chicago, that you have people who wake up in the morning and want to commit crime. But if people understood where the problem stems from, it's not police. I've had good experience with police officers. I've had bad experience with police officers. Mm-hmm. The problem is how we are social cultured. If we get to know one another, we see the goodness in all of us. But the problem is that we don't. And we have politicians who take advantage of that for political gains. And we have electorates that are not prepared, as Thomas Jefferson said, to get a good democratic government, you have to have well-educated populace who then decide issues based on those things.
Joseph, thanks for the call from Maryland. Jody has this tweet: we get our cops from all of the troops who fought in Iraq, the ones who shot at cars at checkpoints, killing families among them. Another comment from a viewer in Chicago: stop excusing police brutality. Feeling threatened is not good enough reason to shoot at citizens. And this from Mark saying police or sheriff's departments should listen to the communities and be adaptive to inclusion. Again, this is the cover story of CQ Weekly. Back to the trenches. Congress tackles a thin agenda with the clock running out. And a comment from one of our viewers saying, you mean it's back to D.C. week for Congress, not back to work, unless they intend to try something new. Angelina is joining us from Marysville, Washington, Democrats line. Good morning. Welcome to the conversation, Angelina.
Hi, Steve. You're looking extra cute as usual. I was thinking about the militarization. Yes, thank you. Of the police force, and I think it has got a little bit out of control. I mean, I've had some run-ins with the po-po when I was younger. Being a white girl, you'd think, oh, my pretty white privilege, white. No. I actually have a scar on my inner thigh from a dog bite, a police dog that the policeman could not control, even though I was a victim in that particular circumstance. So, I feel that, and plus civilians versus citizens, we've become civilians to the police instead of citizens. We need to go back to becoming citizens rather than civilians. And I used to work for the CIA back in year 2000. So I know what it's like to be, embedded in, the kind of like the what would you want to call it? The enforcing the law. But I do believe that there definitely should be a little bit more toned down, saying with the police versus us. Like it's almost a us versus them thing now, and I don't like that at all. I think it really should be toned down. I think we really should have a more like just mutual feeling of appreciation for each other. Because I do appreciate the law enforcement. I really do. They are a great benefit for all of us, and they do right by us when they do right. But when they do wrong, we should get out the bad guys. Get the bad guys out. And don't like have the blue code, the blue code of honor where you just you basically cover for each other. It's horrible. You got to get the bad guys out and just and work from there. You know, so that's how I feel about it. But I love the police. I do.
Thank you. Despite the dog bite, huh?
Okay, and you're adorable, by the way. I love you.
Thank you very much for the call. Let's get more of your calls and comments, and also on Facebook, facebook.com/cspan. This is from Anthony, who says, thugs have no interest in becoming responsible, law-abiding citizens, so the question is moot. We need police because without them, we could have anarchy. And Bo says laws have been needed to be enforced, non-aggression policies taught in schools, abolish prison sentences for non-violent crimes. James is joining us, Fort Worth, Texas, Democrats line on ways to improve relations between communities, especially inner city communities, and police departments, especially in light of what we've seen in Baltimore and Dallas and elsewhere. James, good morning from Fort Worth, Texas.
Good morning. Thanks again for C-SPAN, Steve, old friend. I'm a sociologist you hear from.
Sure.
And this is not a philosophical answer. This is a civic management answer. The answer to how we resolve this is civilian review boards. It's false to assume that the power granted to the police on the street does not create power of corruption. Mm-hmm. The truth is that there is so much corruption in police departments, and I want to talk specifically about balance, about double standards. When a police officer, when a bad police officer loses his temper and executes somebody on the street, we hear 99% of the cops are good cops, but they're the people that are circling the wagons and protecting the killers in their ranks. Okay? That's RICO. That's accessory after the fact. Until we get an honest civilian review board that pulls the bad cops off the streets, when there is equal justice for cop killers and killer cops, then the public will trust the police. But when you've got police officers who routinely go through people's pockets and take their money, who pick on, and let me rephrase this, greed will always blame the weakest members of society for social ills and hire bullies to keep them in line. So that's the circumstance. Until we start.
Final thought, James? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You have to let them go.
We missed your final thought.
Until we hold police to the same standards as we hold civilians as far as crime goes, it will never change. And the police cannot police themselves. So it has to be proper civic management by civilian review boards.
James, it's good to hear from you. Don't be a stranger. Call back again. And from J.C. Hawkins, many officers are trigger happy and escalate situations into violent encounters, especially with mentally disabled or suicidal persons. And from a Virginia voter saying, or a Texan, I should say, lock up the thugs and the criminals, and the policemen won't have anything to say but hi to folks, kids, and dogs. Carmela is joining us. Good morning from Cleveland, Ohio.
Hello.
Good morning, Carmela.
Good morning. Actually, my name is Normella.
Oh, Normella.
And I
apologize.
Yeah, and I actually am a police trainer. I am working with a retired police officer. I'm an organizational effectiveness coach. And we have a program through Cleveland State University that we put together called Building Mutual Respect and Community Trust. And what this program does, and this is really a complex issue, and I really would like for the audience to understand the complexities involved with it. What we try to do is to work with police officers basically on things like de-escalation, building community respect, understanding the need to do that, the dynamics of power and control, self-management, because the truth is a lot of these guys are young. When they come to the force, there are a lot of baby boomers retiring. They don't, as people have said earlier, necessarily come from the communities that they are policing, and therefore they may not understand a lot of the cultural dynamics that are occurring. And I think just working with them in a way that because these guys also don't get a lot of training. Most of the training they get is about how to take people down, not necessarily how to work well with other people, how to slow down the process, because actually just something as simple as slowing down makes a big difference in terms of how they react in a situation. And so what we're trying to do is educate them about implicit bias and a lot of the things that occur with human beings. So the police are not perfect, the civilians are not perfect, but as a police officer, they have a higher responsibility to make sure that they are staying safe themselves first and also keeping others safe.
Normella, how long have you been doing this?
This is our second year. So we actually, this is a research-based program. We had a psychologist, a sociologist, a communication specialist, diversity and inclusion specialist come together to put this thing together, and we've gotten actually great results. We've had lots of chiefs in our local area come through the program before we actually put it out there to the cops, and the chiefs tell us that these guys are scared to death also. So a lot of their reaction comes from fear. And, of course, there are bad people on the police force, but I think they are far and few between. And I think as community members, we need to figure out how to work together on this. Second point I want to make is someone called earlier, and they were talking about the city of Chicago and comparing that with a city in Virginia. And, you know, instead of us saying, well, you know, these people over here are great citizens and these people over there are not, I think we have to look at what is going on in Chicago. There is more crime there, but there's a reason for that crime. And so if we could start to maybe address some of those social reasons that there's so much despair there, because people don't become criminals because they're just bad people. They become criminals out of desperation.
Thank you very much for adding your voice to the program and sharing your insights from Cleveland. This is the story this morning from inside the New York Times. In Detroit, Donald Trump visiting a black church for the first time. And by the way, we will continue to cover the campaign tomorrow. Hillary Clinton will be on the campaign trail with her running mate, Senator Tim Kaine. That is expected to get underway at about 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow afternoon in Cleveland. Also, Senator Kaine is going to be in Pittsburgh. And then on Tuesday, he is delivering a speech on U.S. foreign policy. We're covering all the candidates tomorrow and throughout the week here on the C-SPAN networks. John, Decatur, Illinois, Democrats line. Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead, John.
My problem is when they took discipline out of grade school, that changed everything. My grandmother was a teacher. She told me when I was a kid, when you cannot discipline other people, parents, children, you have them problems. My granny was black, and she said once the liberal people said nobody can spank their kids at school, that messed the world up. And that's all I have to say. Have a good day.
John from Decatur. And Steve has this: civilians who commit crimes against cops get harsher sentences. Apply that to cops who commit crimes with a badge. Tony from Ocala, Florida. Good morning. Welcome to the conversation.
Hey, Steve. Good morning. Hey, you know, you guys really should take a closer look at our judicial system. I mean, in all honesty, it is a for-profit corporation that's domiciled in Britain. And that should tell you a lot right there. I mean, think about it. The judge, the prosecutor, the defender, all belong to the same club. So how can you have justice when all three members of the judicial system, as we know it, is a for-profit corporation? That's all I have to say. Look at it. It's something really screwed up.
Tony, thanks for the call. Next is a viewer from Kansas City, Missouri, Independent Line. Good morning. Welcome to the program. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I tell you, there are so many thoughts. Well, I will tell you this: community policing is so important. It's so important that the community and the police work together to solve crimes, to improve the lives of the people of the community.
So define for a minute community policing. How would you answer that?
Well, I would consider community policing to be the people of the community working with the police department to address the issues that they face, whether it's crime, economical issues, in terms of, when I say economic issue, I say that the crime that is causing there to be issues such as jobs or businesses that are not able to thrive in the community, lives being lost in the community. People need to work together. We need to have the community and the police work together, and that's going to be community policing from the schools all the way to the neighborhoods. It cannot be an us against them. That's not working. And at the end of the day, we got to make sure that we truly do train the police before they go into the communities on how to work with the people. What are the situations of the communities? And then we need to make sure at the same time that we're talking about the economical issues that we are facing throughout America. Okay, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and the people in the middle are steadily falling to the bottom. Instead of the middle class, what we have in America is the pretender class, because they don't own anything, the majority of them. They're laced in debt, and a couple paychecks away from losing it all. Okay, so the whole system is backwards. We need to work on how are we going to fix the economic system in America, and when we do that, crime is going to be reduced. And the Second Amendment is not how we're going to getting rid of guns and stopping people from legally having pistols is not going to reduce the amount of crime that we have in America. Okay, we need to address jobs, economics, and the scam that we have in terms of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer.
Which is what Donald Trump spoke about yesterday. Jaguffa, who's joining us from Kansas City, thank you for weighing in on this issue. Another view, police forces should pull out the violent Democratic-run cities and see what the cop haters have to say then. Police are not the problem. Virginia, joining us from Memphis, Tennessee, Republican line. Good morning.
Yes, sir. I would like to say that our policemen are 100% great. We need the citizen and everyone, I don't care how young or old you are, to respect the officers. They don't need to bend for anyone. They already been trained because they have a justice for all people. And they have did great things. And I done had running in with police before, and they all was intelligent and respectful. So don't start calling police to come and help you. Would you help my disabled son or my disabled this, and knowing they got a weapon in their hand, because the officer is not to be into the people. They already been trained. They're very intelligent. We just need more of them.
Virginia, thanks for the call from Memphis. This is the story this morning below the fold in the Washington Post. U.S.-China tensions seen in a testy start to Obama's visit, including a rather heated exchange between the advance team for the president and officials on the ground, and restricting media access for the president's arrival. The full story available online at WashingtonPost.com. Johnny from Beaumont, Texas, Democrats line. Good morning.
I just wanted to say this. Here in Texas, you can visit the local jails, the prisons. I don't have a felony, never had one, but I know people that do, and most of it is related to drugs. And a lot of times these people sell drugs to supplement their income. If the wages are so low, because some of them, that's what they do. They'll sell marijuana or whatever. But I'm going to tell you, when they did this war on drugs thing back, I guess, who was it, Reagan, Nancy, when they did that war on drugs, what it did, it targeted African Americans and Hispanics. Visit the jails here. They're like 95% black and Hispanic. A lot of young men. They got 20 years for marijuana. Where some of these states, they're doing this stuff legally, and here in Texas, they still locking people up. It's not right. You know what I mean? You got to end this war on drug stuff and give these people jobs. Because when you get hungry enough, you're going to do something to get some money. You can bet that. You're not going to sit there and starve. Some of us never got that way before, but you're going to see. They better do something about jobs in these communities. And when these guys come out, take
your calls and comments on the issue of ways to improve community and police relations, and the conversation continues at Facebook.com/C-SPAN, and continue if you want to send in your tweets at C-SPAN WJ. We're going to take a short break. When we come back,